Take it off. Right now. The old watchmaker's frantic scream tore through the silence of the night, pulling a father back on the brink of a death that had been scripted for him. For 5 long months, Arthur had worn that exquisite watch on his wrist, believing it was a symbol of his daughter-in-law's devotion and protection. He never guessed that the soft, rhythmic tick-tock against his skin was actually the countdown of a miniature nuclear reactor, silently poisoning his very bones day by day. When the elegant silver case was finally peeled back, what lay inside wasn't a mechanism of time, but the darkest depths of human greed. What is a father to do when he realizes the children he cherishes most want his time to run out? That scream, Mr. Chen's desperate cry in the antique shop that afternoon, it still echoes in my mind like a death knell. My name is Arthur Bennett, and I am 68 years old. If it weren't for that fateful moment, I would likely be lying 6 feet under the cold earth right now, while my children toasted with champagne over my grave. I still remember the feeling of standing frozen in that shop, the air heavy with the smell of machine oil. My hands trembled as I undid the leather strap, obeying the old craftsman's command. As the watch hit the black velvet mat with a heavy thud, a cold chill ran down my spine, not from the air conditioning, but from a creeping, invisible fear. My left wrist, where the case back had rested for half a year, revealed a patch of raw, angry red skin. It was ulcerated and bruised, looking for all the world like a chemical burn. Mr. Chen immediately seized the watch with metal tongs, dropped it into a thick lead box, and slammed the lid shut. He exhaled sharply, sweat beading on his forehead, and looked at me with eyes full of both pity and horror. "Mr. Bennett," he said, his voice grave, like a judge passing a sentence. "Go look in the mirror. Look closely, and tell me how much life you think you have left." I gripped the edge of the display case to steady myself and shuffled toward the cloudy mirror in the corner. The reflection that stared back stopped my heart. Was that really Arthur Bennett? The man who was once the chairman of a prestigious real estate group? The man who used to stride proudly down Fifth Avenue in bespoke suits? No, the man in the mirror was a walking corpse. My eyes were sunken deep into dark, bruised hollows. My cheeks had collapsed, revealing the sharp outline of my skull. The thick, silver hair I was once so proud of was falling out in clumps, leaving patches of pale scalp exposed. My tailored clothes now hung off me like drapes on a skeleton. 6 months. It had only been 6 months since that fateful birthday. The memories came rushing back, a sharp pain squeezing my chest. That day, at my mansion in the Hamptons, my daughter-in-law, Elena, had approached me with a smile as radiant as an angel's, handing me a gift box wrapped in red velvet. "Dad," her voice was sweet as honey, "David and I won this vintage watch in auction in Europe just for you, but it's very special." I remember being moved to tears as my son fastened it around my wrist. Elena held my hand, instructing me with such concern. "It has a state-of-the-art biosensor chip inside to monitor your heart rate, Dad. But you have to promise me one thing. Never take it off. Not when you sleep, not even when you shower. If you take it off for more than 15 minutes, the alarm system will break. Promise me? For our peace of mind." "I promise," I had said firmly. "I will never take it off." I kept that foolish promise. I wore it when the nausea began to torment me every morning. I wore it as my hair covered my pillow, and even when the private doctors Elena hired dismissed it all as geriatric depression. I touched my gaunt face in the mirror. I had trusted them completely. Mr. Chin stepped closer, his voice low, but chilling enough to snap me back to this brutal reality. "Sir, I stake my 40-year reputation on this. That is not a health tracker. Someone has turned that watch into a tomb to bury you alive." I collapsed into the chair, my heart pounding erratically. It turned out the thing on my wrist wasn't measuring time. It was a death sentence. And the judges who passed the verdict were the very children I loved the most. To understand how I could be naive enough to wear that death watch, I have to take you back 6 months. It was the night of my retirement party at the Hamptons estate. That night, the brilliant crystal chandeliers and the melodious music couldn't fill the void in my heart. Since my wife passed, I had lived amidst immense wealth, yet I always yearned for a simple family meal. And then Elena appeared like a shining star. My daughter-in-law stepped onto stage, glamorous and confident, dragging along David, my spineless son who was sweating bullets. Elena held the microphone, her voice trembling with emotion. "Dad, we know you don't need anything money can buy, but we wanted to give you a silent guardian." David tremblingly presented an ebony box. Inside sat a stunning vintage watch with a polished silver case. "We won this at an auction in Europe," Elena announced loudly for everyone to hear. "It's fitted with the latest biosensor technology to track your heart. But remember, Dad, absolutely never take it off or the system will fail." I looked at my son, his head bowed low. I thought he was just shy. I hugged them both, tears streaming down my face. I pushed away all my doubts about their previous coldness, believing they truly loved me. But there was a fragment of memory I had ignored back then. While walking past the quiet hallway, I had heard Elena hissing in the shadows. I had to sell my entire jewelry set to buy this watch casing and hire a special craftsman. You better act heartbroken properly. Don't let the old man suspect a thing. At the time, the alcohol and my blind happiness led me to misunderstand. I thought they were struggling financially, but still trying to buy me a gift. I never guessed that the craftsman she mentioned was an assassin. That night, after the guests had left, I sat alone in the dim study. I poured a glass of strong brandy, placed a watch under the warm lamp, and looked up at my wife's portrait. "You see, honey," I whispered, "our children are so devoted." In the silence, I carefully fastened the watch to my left wrist, tightening the leather strap just as my daughter-in-law had instructed. The second hand began to move. I had strapped it to my wrist, and its ticking sounded as soothing as a heartbeat of the devil. A month after that fateful night, the glamour evaporated, leaving me in a cold, harsh reality. My body began to fail me in inexplicable ways. Waking up became a battle. Every morning, I'd rush to the bathroom, retching until nothing but bitter bile remained. Clumps of hair covered my pillow. Most terrifying of all, right beneath the silver case back of the watch, my skin had developed angry red rashes, weeping sores, and ulcerated flesh. "Honey," I groaned as Elena applied ointment to my wrist. "Should I just take it off? I think I might be allergic to the metal." "Absolutely not, Dad," Elena exclaimed, pressing the watch firmly back onto my open wound. "The doctor said it's just an irritation from the leather strap. Have you forgotten your promise? If you take it off, you'll break the heart rate monitor chip. Do you want to worry us to death?" Her rebuke made me feel guilty. I gritted my teeth and let her fasten that shackle back onto my wrist. Strange doctors hired by Elena would come in, give me a cursory glance, and dismissively declare, "Mr. Bennett is physically fine. This is just geriatric depression." They fed me handfuls of sedatives that left my mind in a constant fog, wandering like a lost soul. My world shrank to the four walls of my bedroom. One afternoon, during a moment of clarity, I tried to call Harold, my personal lawyer, but the landline cord had been unplugged. My cell phone was dead, and the charger had mysteriously vanished. Panicked, I gripped the windowsill and looked down into the courtyard. Below, I saw Mrs. Higgins, my loyal housekeeper 30 years, carrying her luggage to the gate, sobbing as she walked. Elena stood there, pointing a finger in anger. The last person on my side had been fired. The bedroom door burst open. Elena marched in, saw me by the window, and immediately turned to scream at the new maid. "I told you, my father is mentally unstable. He needs absolute quiet. From now on, no one is allowed on the second floor or to give him a phone unless I say so. Cut the doorbell wires." Her shrill voice slammed the door on my hope. I sat dazed on the bed, staring at the watch ticking away on my rotting wrist. I was no longer the master of this house. I was a prisoner, and my warden was the daughter-in-law I once cherished. Folks, let's pause for a moment. Have you ever felt something was terribly wrong, only to have your own family dismiss it as paranoia? That is called gaslighting, and it is sharper than any knife. If you despise those who exploit the trust of their elderly parents for profit, please hit the like button on this video right now. Let it be a warning to ungrateful children everywhere. We may be old, but we are not blind. If anyone asks what moment saved my life, I will answer without hesitation. It wasn't when I stepped into the watch shop, but the moment Lucky was kicked. Lucky was a 12-year-old golden retriever, my only remaining loyal friend. That afternoon, the itching beneath my wrist became unbearable, breaking my promise. I took the watch off and placed it on the bedside table to wipe away the sweat. Lucky, seeing me awake, excitedly jumped up. His wagging tail accidentally brushed against the watch. Crash! The watch hit the hardwood floor. The sound of cracking glass rang out, dry and sharp. Less than 3 seconds later, Elena burst into the room like a hurricane. She didn't look at me. She didn't ask, "Dad, are you all right?" She lunged to the watch, inspecting the crack in the glass with a look of pure terror, as if she were holding a live grenade. Lucky, innocent and unaware, trotted over to sniff at her feet. Thud. Elena swung her leg, driving her sharp high heel into the old dog's ribs. "Get out, you stupid beast. You've ruined everything." Lucky yelped in pain and slid into the corner, whimpering. That kick felt like a blow to my own chest. It shattered her dutiful daughter-in-law, charade into a million pieces. I suddenly woke up. If she truly cared about my heart condition, she would have checked on me first. But no, she was only afraid the machine was broken. She didn't care about my life. She cared about her murder weapon. "Thank God, it's still running," she muttered, letting out a sigh of relief. Then she turned to me, her face twisting from rage back into a mask of feigned concern. "Dad, you scare me half to death. Don't you ever take it off again." That night, I didn't sleep. I stuffed cotton balls in my ears to pretend I was in a deep slumber, while my hand reached under the bed to stroke Lucky, who was still trembling. Around 2 a.m, I heard Elena and David whispering in the hallway. "Call the vet." Elena's voice was ice cold. "This old dog is too much trouble. Just have them put him to sleep for good." "But Dad will get suspicious." David said weakly. "Suspicious of what?" She scoffed. "The old man is senile. He won't last another month anyway. By then, this whole house will be ours." The footsteps faded away. Tears streamed down my face, but my hand, stroking the dog, curled into a tight fist. The fear in me died with that kick this afternoon. Tomorrow, Arthur Bennett would no longer be a victim. I would begin a hunt of my own. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity arrived when Elena went to a luxury spa in Manhattan to relax. As soon as her car disappeared around the bend, I secretly called Thomas, my old loyal driver whom she had fired. "Pick me up at the back gate." Immediately, I whispered. 15 minutes later, I climbed over the fence and into the back seat of his old Lincoln. I clutched the watch in my pocket, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Take me to Mr. Chen's shop. Hurry." At the repair shop, Mr. Chen examined the watch under a magnifying loupe. His look of curiosity quickly turned to horror. He rushed to the back and returned with a yellow device, a Geiger counter. He turned it on and moved the probe near the watch. Click, click, click. The sound escalated into a high-pitched screech. The needle on the gauge slammed all the way into the red zone. Mr. Chun went pale, hurriedly put on thick-lead gloves, and threw the watch into an isolation glass case. "Good God," he gasped, his voice trembling. "Mr. Bennett, how long have you been wearing this?" 5 months. I replied, a cold chill running down my spine. Mr. Chin pointed at the glass case, his hand shaking. "Sir, this luminescent paint isn't normal. It's a concentrated radium compound mixed with military-grade isotopes. The maker shaved the silver case back down until it was paper-thin. When you wear it, your body heat warms the poison, and the radiation absorbs directly through your skin, straight into your bloodstream." I stood frozen, looking down at my left wrist. The skin there was black and purple, necrotic, looking like rotting meat. I shuddered, realizing I had been hugging the Grim Reaper for 150 days. My children didn't use a knife or a gun. They used a gift to erode their father hour by hour, turning me into a walking corpse. Mr. Chin looked me dead in the eye and delivered a sentence that froze my blood. "Sir, this is not a time machine. This is a miniature nuclear reactor. Whoever gave this to you, they don't want you to tell time. They want your time to run out. The innocence of Arthur Bennett died right there in that watch shop. Tears rolled down my face, but inside, a fire of vengeance began to roar. Leaving Mr. Chen's shop, I went straight to Mount Sinai Hospital to meet Dr. Harris, an old friend and a leading hematologist. I needed a verdict based on science, not just speculation. 2 hours later, Dr. Harris walked out, his face as dark as a sky before a storm. He slid the lab results across the desk toward me. "Arthur, you have acute radiation poisoning. Your white blood cell count is critically low, red alert levels. If you keep exposing yourself to that source, your bone marrow will completely fail within 2 weeks." 2 weeks. That was the deadline my son and daughter-in-law had calculated for my death. They wanted me to fade away, mimicking the natural cycle of aging, to fool the police and insurance companies. I returned to Mr. Chen's shop. The old craftsman had finished the swap. He had discarded the deadly nuclear mechanism and replaced it with a harmless, standard mechanical movement inside the original silver case. "It's harmless now," Mr. Chen said as he handed it back to me. "But please be careful." I strapped the watch back onto my wrist. This time, it was no longer a shackle. It was a weapon. Sitting in the car on the way home, I watched the rows of trees blur past the window. The benevolent father named Arthur Bennett had died in that lab this morning. All that remained was the Terminator, my cold-blooded nickname for my business days. The pain in my heart had crystallized into a sharp, cold hatred. Before walking to gates, I looked in the rearview mirror and wiped away the last tear remaining in the corner of my eye. I loosened my tie, messed up my hair, and practiced a weak, weary smile, the smile of a dying old man, just to put on a show for my daughter-in-law. My phone buzzed. It was David. "Dad, where are you?" His voice was full of accusation. "My wife is worried sick. Can you stop making our lives miserable? Just stay in the house." Hearing my son's spineless voice, my heart no longer wavered. I replied, my voice raspy and breathless. "I'm sorry, son. I just wanted one last walk, to prepare my soul for a peaceful departure." He let out a sigh of relief and hung up. I leaned on my cane, dragging my heavy steps into the house. In my mind, the tables had turned. They thought they were waiting for my funeral to pop the champagne. But in reality, they were preparing for their own trial. As soon as I stepped through the door, I feigned exhaustion and collapsed onto the floor. David and Elena, in a panic, hauled me upstairs and tossed me onto bed like an old sack of potatoes. I lay motionless, keeping my breathing shallow. Just minutes later, a crisp pop echoed from the living room. The smell of expensive Dom Perignon champagne wafted in. "Drink up, darling." Elena's voice rang out, shrill and excited. "Tomorrow we are free. The old man is tough. That amount of radiation should have stopped his heart last week." "Keep it down," David whispered. "What if Dad hears us?" "Hear what?" She scoffed. "Look at that withered husk in there. He's just an ATM waiting to be unplugged." Every word felt like a needle stabbing my heart. 10 minutes later, the bedroom door burst open. Elena led in Martin, a shady lawyer known for doing dirty work. "We have to do it now," the lawyer rasped. "If he dies tonight without signing the asset transfer papers, you're going to have a hell of a time with the inheritance tax." "David, hold his hand." Elena ordered. I felt my son's clammy hand grip my wrist tight. Elena shoved a cold fountain pen into my hand and squeezed hard. "Sign it, you old coot. Just a scribble will do." This was the moment they planned to strip me of everything. I summoned every ounce of my remaining strength and suddenly convulsed violently. My arm jerked up, flinging the pen across the room where it hit the wall and snapped in half. I rolled my eyes back and foamed at the mouth. "Damn it," the lawyer cursed. "He's seizing. Forget it. If we leave bruises, the police will get suspicious." Elena looked at me with pure venom, then spat a glob of saliva on the floor right next to my bed. "He'll be dead tomorrow anyway. Let's go finish the bottle." The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed the room. I opened my eyes and looked toward the bookshelf opposite me. There, inside the eye of an old teddy bear, the infrared light of the pet camera was still blinking. It had recorded everything. The coercion, the insults, and their naked cruelty. I gripped the bedsheets, refusing to cry. I began to mentally calculate the guest list for tomorrow's party. It would be the final curtain call for my ungrateful children. Ladies and gentlemen, I lay there, listening to my own flesh and blood call me a withered husk. The physical pain was nothing compared to the agony tearing apart my heart. If you are still listening, please help me. Leave a comment with the word justice or the number 1 below. Let me know that I am not alone in this dark night. Your support is the fuel I need to tell you about the final act of revenge tomorrow. The next morning, the house was buzzing with preparations for the gala. I could clearly hear Elena barking orders at the maid to iron her dress, her gloating laughter echoing all the way into my cold, isolated room. The door creaked open. Timmy, my 8-year-old grandson, tiptoed in. He climbed onto the edge of the bed, looking at me with wide, fearful eyes. "Grandpa," he whispered, "Mom said she's going tonight to get money for your treatment. But she also said, after you fall into a deep sleep, I have to go to boarding school in Switzerland." My heart sank. Why would she say that, son? Mom says we're going to be very rich soon, and she'll be too busy spending money and traveling to look after me, Timmy explained innocently, twisting the hem of his shirt. She also said she could take Lucky to the vet so he can sleep with you, because the school doesn't allow dogs. A fire of rage ignited in my chest. It turned out Elena didn't just want to kill me. She wanted to ship her own flesh and blood halfway across the world, so she could be free to enjoy her spoils. She viewed her son as a burden, just as she viewed me as an ATM. Timmy reached out and touched the watch on my wrist, asking a question that stopped my heart cold. "Grandpa, why did Mom tell Dad this morning that this watch is a winning lottery ticket? Isn't a watch just for telling time?" A winning lottery ticket. That was what she called my life. The comparison was so pragmatic, so disgusting, that I wanted to vomit. I looked into my grandson's clear, innocent eyes. I could not let Timmy grow up under the twisted upbringing of that venomous woman. This war was no longer just about personal revenge. It was about protecting this child's future. I struggled to sit up, secretly pulling my lawyer Harold's business card from my pajama pocket and tucking it deep into the pocket of Timmy's overalls. "Timmy, listen to Grandpa. This is a good luck charm. If anything happens tonight, if you see a police officer in a blue uniform, give this to him, okay? Don't let your mom know. I promise." The boy nodded and scurried out of the room. I lay back on the pillow, my eyes turning cold as a scalpel. "Elena, David, you made the biggest mistake of your lives when you touched my family. You want to send your son to Switzerland? No. The only place you are going is the state penitentiary. 7 o'clock in the evening. The Ritz-Carlton shone like a diamond in the heart of the city. Inside, under the magnificent crystal chandeliers, the elite were raising their glasses in celebration. But sitting in the black Mercedes parked discreetly at the back entrance, I could smell only the stench of deceit. On my tablet screen, I watched Elena standing on the podium, radiant in a red dress and wearing the diamond necklace she had stolen from my late wife. She dabbed at her eyes. Her voice choked with emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, my father, Arthur, should be standing here. But a terrible illness has struck him down. Although he cannot be present, I know he is smiling down on us from his sick bed." She spoke of me as if I were already dead. She was holding a premature funeral for me right in the middle of a cocktail party to legitimately seize a charity fund. I turned off the screen. Darkness swallowed the car. I looked down at my battle armor, my favorite navy blue suit. It used to fit my broad shoulders perfectly. Now it hung loosely. Losing 35 pounds in 5 months made me look like an old man wearing borrowed clothes. I had to tighten my belt to the very last notch just to keep my pants up. "Are you ready, sir?" Mr. Chin asked from the front seat, clutching the briefcase containing the evidence. "I am ready," I replied, my voice like steel. Before opening the door, I did one last thing. I unbuckled the watch from my left wrist. The skin beneath was still wrapped in bandages. I slipped it into my left breast pocket, right next to my heart. It sat there cold, ticking away like a reminder of betrayal and the price paid for blind trust. I leaned on my cane and stepped out of the car. The night wind was biting, but my back was straight. I wasn't walking in there to beg for pity. I was walking in there to reclaim justice. Inside, thunder's applause erupted after Elena's speech. They were clapping for the curtain call. But they didn't know that the real play was just beginning. Inside the magnificent hall, the atmosphere of feigned emotion was reaching its peak. Elena stood on the stage, raising her wine glass with the satisfied smile of a victor. To my father's legacy. Hundreds of guests raised their glasses in unison. But before a single drop could touch their lips, a loud sound cut through everything. Boom! The grand wooden doors of the main entrance burst open, slamming against the walls. A cold gust of wind rushed in, snuffing out the candles. The band stopped playing. A heavy silence blanketed the entire auditorium. Standing tall in the doorway was me, Arthur Bennett. I leaned on my cane and walked in. Clack, clack. Every step echoed sharply on the marble floor. My oversized navy suit billowed around me like the cloak of the Grim Reaper. My face was gaunt, my skin pale under the lights, but I stood straight as an arrow. The crowd parted in horror, looking at me as if they were seeing a ghost returning from the grave. Smash! David dropped his glass of red wine. The glass shattered, the crimson liquid spreading across the floor like blood. His face drained of all color, staring at me as if he were seeing a demon. As for Elena, her triumphant smile vanished, replaced by a twisted mask of sheer terror. I walked up the steps to the stage. Elena lunged forward to block me, try and cover the microphone, gritting her teeth as she hissed. "What the hell are you doing here? Go home immediately. You are embarrassing me in front of the whole city. Don't make me call security." I looked at her like she was a piece of trash, then gently brushed her hand away and seized the microphone. I turned to look at David, who was bowing his head, trembling. In my eyes at that moment, there was no longer anger, only a profound disappointment. I turned back to the audience, my voice raspy but echoing with every word. "My daughter-in-law says that I am embarrassing her." I glanced at Elena, who stood frozen. Embarrassing? No, Elena. I am saving your souls before it is too late. The whole room gasped. Elena tried to lunge at me, but two plainclothes officers stepped up to block her path. I continued, "You came here to hear a speech about filial piety, but I apologize, I am not dead yet. Instead of flowery lies, I have a short film I want to show everyone." I tapped my cane on the floor 3 times. The lights went out. The giant screen behind me flared to life. The public trial had begun. On the giant screen, the black and white footage appeared with brutal clarity. The entire hall held its breath. The first clip, Elena viciously kicking Lucky in the ribs. The dry thud and the dog's painful yelp echoed through the speakers, tearing through the polite, sophisticated atmosphere of the gala. The next scene, last night, Elena's voice rang out crystal clear. "Look at that wither husk. He's just an ATM waiting to be unplugged." On screen, she was forcing my convulsing hand to sign the transfer papers. Elena stood on stage, her face white as a sheet, stammering denials. "No, it's fake. It's edited." I cut her off, my voice cold as ice. "And this is why I call you a murderer." The final clip appeared. Mr. Chen's shop. The Geiger counter screeched click. Click, SCRECH, a piercing alarm as it touched the watch. Mr. Chen's voice confirmed the horror. "This is a miniature nuclear reactor, concentrated radium. Destroys bone marrow." The naked truth was laid bare. The crowd roared with indignation. The watch wasn't a gift. It was a murder weapon. "Enough!" The police captain shouted from the entrance. "Elena and David Bennett, you are under arrest for attempted murder by radiation poisoning." Officers swarmed the stage. David collapsed to his knees, sobbing like a child, daring not to look at me. But Elena fought like a wild animal as the cold cuffs locked onto her wrists. The mask fell away completely. She turned and screamed at me, her eyes bloodshot and manic. "It's your fault. This is all your fault. Why wouldn't you just die? You lived too long. I only wanted what I deserved. You owe me." Her screaming faded as they dragged her out the heavy doors. I stood there, feeling no joy of victory, only an exhausting relief. I threw my cane aside, rushed down the steps, and fell on my knees to hug Timmy, who was cowering in fear. I cover his eyes and ears with my bony hands, shielding him from the chaos. "Don't look, Timmy, don't look," I whispered, tears falling onto his hair. "It's over. Grandpa is here." Tonight, Arthur Bennett lost 2 children, but he saved a human being. And that is true justice. 3 months have passed since that fateful night at the Ritz-Carlton. It isn't a long time, but it was enough to completely reshape a man's life. I am sitting here now, on an old oak chair by a quiet lake in Connecticut, watching the sun slowly dip behind the pine trees. The afternoon breeze blows gently, carrying the scent of pine needles and fresh water. My health has recovered miraculously, though I will never be quite the same. After dozens of painful detox treatments, the heavy metal levels in my blood have dropped to a safe range. My hair has grown back, though it is whiter than before. I've gained 11 pounds. My cheeks no longer look like a withered skull. However, the doctor says my liver has suffered 30% permanent damage. That is my war scar, a lifelong reminder of the price of misplaced trust. As for Elena and David, justice was served, cold and fair. The court sentenced Elena to 25 years in the state penitentiary for attempted murder and fraud, with no possibility of parole for 15 years. David, due to his cooperation and evidence of psychological manipulation, received a 15-year sentence. I didn't attend the sentencing. My lawyer, Harold, told me that as he was led away, David cried and called out my name. But Elena remained stone-faced, unrepentant to the end. She lost everything: her freedom, her reputation, and her dreams of high society life. Their massive gambling debts and lavish lifestyle had already swallowed up every penny of their own assets. Immediately after the trial, I did something I should have done long ago. I sold a mansion in the Hamptons. That house was too big, and it held too many ghosts of deceit. I used part of the money to buy this small lakefront condo, a place with no lavish parties, no mass socialites, only peace. With the majority of the remaining funds, I established the Bennett Protection Fund, an organization dedicated to providing free legal aid to the elderly who are abused or financially exploited by their families. I wanted my painful story to become a shield for others. "Grandpa, look, I got a bite." Timmy's joyful shout pulled me from my thoughts. My 8-year-old grandson was standing on the dock, holding a tiny bamboo fishing rod, his face beaming in the afternoon sun. I smiled, leaned on my cane, and walked over to him. Lucky, the old dog, now fully recovered from that brutal kick, trotted along beside me, his tail wagging lazily. "Good job, young man," I said, helping Timmy unhook the small perch and release it back into the water. Timmy giggled, then wiped the sweat from his forehead with his wrist. There, on his small arm, was a cheap plastic Spider-Man watch, the kind you buy for $10 at the supermarket. "Grandpa, what time is it?" Timmy asked, looking at his watch with grown-up seriousness. "Is it time for dinner yet?" I looked at that gaudy red and blue plastic watch. It had no silver case, no Swiss movement, and it certainly wouldn't fetch millions at an auction. But to me, right now, it was worth 1,000 times more than the death watch, because it counted the rhythm of life, of innocence, and of genuine love. In my mind's eye, I saw myself holding that radioactive watch, that piece of painful evidence now sitting in a police storage locker. I saw myself standing at the edge of a black abyss and throwing it down. I threw away the pain, the hatred, and the history of betrayal. I placed my hand on Timmy's shoulder, feeling the warmth of life. "It's still early, my boy. We have plenty of time. Believe in justice, my friends. The truth always has a way of coming to light, sometimes from the smallest things. A kick to an old dog, or a warning from a nameless watchmaker. Heaven has eyes, and the net of justice is wide, but nothing slips through. I am Arthur Bennett. Thank you for walking with me through the darkness to find this light. Cherish every ticking second of your life, but make sure the watch on your wrist counts the rhythm of love, not calculation. After witnessing the terrifying events that befell the Bennett family, what are your thoughts on Arthur's final decision? Was personally sending his own son and daughter-in-law to prison for decades an act of cruelty? Or was it true justice, a lesson in reaping what you sow that ungrateful children must face? Please share your honest thoughts in the comments below. I read and cherish every single word you write. If this story has strengthened your belief in the law of cause and effect, please don't hesitate to give this video a like and share it with your loved ones as a warning. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next meaningful story. Until next time,